Deep in the depths of the American countryside stood an ancient church surrounded by dense forest and clouds of mysterious history. This church had witnessed many events, but one event remained forgotten in the shadows of time, until one day it was time for it to unravel. In the early 19th century, when the village was still in its infancy, the church was a place of fellowship and hope for the entire community. Sunday services brought residents together for prayer and singing, and the priest, Father Jonathan, was considered a respected and good spiritual shepherd. However, as time passed, strange and terrible events began to occur at the church that changed the lives of everyone who ever crossed its threshold. At first, signs of unexplained events began to appear during the night prayer services. Sudden shadows began to loom on the walls of the church like living creatures dancing in the candlelight. Frightened parishioners began to notice that their prayers were sometimes interrupted by strange and terrifying whispers, as if voices from the world of the dead. But the worst happened one dark night when the church fell into deep darkness. The candlelight went out, and only the light of the month filtered through the windows, illuminating the altar. The villagers looked at the altar with horror, for some dark, distorted figure had appeared on it, as if it were the personification of evil. Father Jonathan prayed desperately, but his words seemed muffled by distorted sounds, and the horror in the eyes of his parishioners only increased. Then, as if out of nowhere, a slow and somber melody began, and the room was filled with the smell of rotting flesh. The villagers began to panic and ran out of the church, leaving only the desperately praying priest alone with the inhuman menace. From then on, the villagers avoided the church and told terrifying stories of hearing whispers and seeing dark figures following them out of the woods. Father Jonathan never reappeared, and his fate remained a mystery. For years, the church stood empty and abandoned until one day a group of paranormal investigators arrived, ready to solve the mystery that haunted the place. The leader of the group was Thomas Richards, known for his daring paranormal investigations. He assembled a team of experts, including a medium, a photographer, and a researcher of ancient artifacts. They arrived in the village determined to uncover the mystery of the church. The first few days of research went smoothly, but soon strange symptoms began to appear. Each member of the group began to see nightmarish visions and hear terrifying whispers that seemed to come from the very depths of the church. The medium began to fall into a trance and draw horrifying pictures depicting dark forces trying to break into our world. With each passing day, the tension in the group grew, and the study participants began to quarrel among themselves, accusing each other of attracting evil. But none of them could explain what was really going on in the church. They soon realized that they had fallen into a deadly trap and decided to leave the place. However, the attempt to leave the village was unsuccessful. They wandered through the forest but somehow always came back to the church, as if it had moved through space and time. They realized that the church did not want their secret to be revealed, and they were now prisoners of their own fear. With each passing day, the group of explorers lost hope and reason. They began to see the ghosts of their own fears and nightmares, and reality began to dissolve into an abyss of madness. They felt dark forces entering their minds and souls trying to consume them. Eventually, the group of explorers disappeared, and their fate remained unknown. The church stood alone, doomed to eternal darkness and suffering. The legend of the terrible story in the church lived in the minds of the villagers, and no one dared to enter its holy walls. And so, the story of the ancient church in America remained not only forgotten, but cursed. Its terrible secrets and dark forces awaited the next vain explorer, willing to risk everything to uncover the truth. But whatever knowledge he gains, the price he pays will prove more terrifying than the sheer terror that lurks in the dark corners of this abandoned church. Deep in the dense forest of the American countryside stood an ancient church, surrounded by a mysterious atmosphere and enigmatic legends. It was a place where the spiritual and the mystical intertwined in a marvelous way, but no one could have guessed that it was here that a terrible story would unfold that would shake their lives. In the small village that lay next to this church lived a young woman named Eliza. She was quiet and mysterious, and not much was known about her past. Her son, little Jake, was the only source of joy in her life. They lived in an old house just a short walk from the church. At first glance, the church seemed beautiful and gracious, but as night fell over the forest, it became ominous and gloomy. The villagers avoided the place after sunset, and their conversations were filled with rumors and prejudices about the church and what might lurk within. One day, as evening began to fall, Eliza decided to walk with Jake along the cliff where she could admire the church and village from above. The wood was plunged into deep darkness, and only pale stars lit their way. Jake, clinging to his mother's hand, ran and laughed happily, finding himself in serene ignorance of what awaited them. As they neared the cliff, Eliza suddenly felt some strange presence. She noticed someone standing at the top of the cliff in the distance, framed by a pale light. She cautiously pulled Jake to her and froze, looking up at the figure. "Who is it?" she whispered, feeling her heart begin to beat faster. The figure slowly descended the cliff and approached them. Eliza was horrified to recognize the figure as a woman who had died long ago. It was her mother, a living memory in her mind. "Mother? This is impossible," whispered Eliza, scarcely believing her eyes. "My daughter, you summoned me." Her mother's voice sounded soft and gentle, but there was a strangely cold tone to it. Eliza felt fear squeeze her heart. She realized that this meeting was something unreal, something from the world of the dead, but at the same time she couldn't take her eyes off that figure. "Why are you here? What do you want from me?" Elise whispered, her voice trembling. "You must find the key to unlocking the past. Hidden inside the church are ancient scrolls that will reveal the true nature of that terrible night. If you do not solve this mystery, your son will be in danger." Eliza felt her mind exploding with internal conflict. She wanted to believe her mother, but she could not rely on such cryptic words. On the other hand, she saw real concern and fear in her mother's eyes. "I don't understand how I can solve the mysteries of the past. I'm just an ordinary woman," Eliza said, trying to grasp the meaning of what was being said. "You are not just an ordinary woman, my daughter. There is something special about you that is connected to this church. You must free her from the curse." Her mother's voice became more insistent. Eliza felt a tremendous weight of responsibility resting on her. She looked at her son, who, despite the strangeness of the situation, looked at them with his clear eyes. She realized that she would have to risk everything to protect her son and uncover the secret of the church. "All right, I'll do it. But how do I get started? Where do I look for these scrolls?" Eliza asked, trying to figure out where to begin her journey. "Look for the key to the past inside the church. Start at the altar. There is an ancient book there that hides the answers to all questions," replied the mother, her figure beginning to dissolve into darkness. Eliza realized that she needed to act quickly. She took Jake's hand and ran toward the church where the mysterious figure had pointed. The night was cold and gloomy, but they didn't stop. As soon as they entered the church, Elise felt a strange sensation, as if she had entered another world. She slowly approached the altar where an old book lay on an ancient stand. She opened it and began to read. Strange symbols and rituals began to reveal to her a story that seemed unbelievable. When Eliza learned that many years ago, a brutal sacrifice had taken place in this church, where an innocent woman was sacrificed to dark forces to achieve immortality, she realized that this was the beginning of this whole mystical story. Dark forces had placed a curse on the church, and it had been a place of evil and fear ever since. Eliza felt it was now her duty to break that curse. She studied all the scrolls she found in the church and discovered a way to break the curse and save her son. But it required a sacrifice. She herself had to do battle with dark forces and sacrifice her life to protect Jake's future. Through the night battle and the darkness of the church, Eliza fought evil using knowledge from ancient scrolls. Her strength and determination against the darkness was incredible. In the end, she was able to break the curse, but the price was high. Her own life was sacrificed. The dark forces that had held this church in power for years were gone, and peace returned to the village. Eliza became a heroine and a legend, her story passed from mouth to mouth, and her courage and devotion memorable days. But in the evenings, when the moon shone brightly and the church stood out in the night gloom, the villagers still felt the strange atmosphere and mystery that lurked within its walls. The legend of the girl who saved her son and broke the curse remained alive in their hearts, reminding them how the power of faith and love can overcome even the worst evil. In a quiet and cozy American village, immersed in a world of lush nature and serene surroundings, stood an ancient church surrounded by century-old trees and tangled paths. It was believed that in this place the spiritual and the mystical were intertwined, creating a special aura of mystery and mystery. But no one could have guessed that it was here that a terrible story would unfold that would turn one family's life upside down. The Morgan family lived in this village. Father Thomas, Mother Elizabeth, and their 2 children, Emma and Jake. The family had lived in the house across from the church for generations, and to them this place was not only home, but a part of their history. Father Thomas was a respected local man and worked as a small store owner. Mother Elizabeth did volunteer work, and the children attended the local school. But one day, on the day of the fall equinox, strange and unexplained events began to happen. At night, while the family slept, mysterious sounds began to echo in the house, banging on the walls, quiet rustles, and unexplained whispers. Father Thomas tried to come to reason and explain these sounds rationally. Perhaps they were drafts or electrical problems. But the longer these strange occurrences went on, the more frantic their nature became. The Morgan family decided to go to the church service and talk to the local priest, Father John, hoping for his help. He was a kind and tolerant man, always willing to listen to the problems of his parishioners. They told him about all the strange events that had been happening in their home. Father John looked worried, but at the same time he said that perhaps it was just the result of fatigue and nervous tension. A few nights later, however, events took an even more horrific turn. The family awoke to total darkness in the house, even though there was a bright moon outside. The electricity had failed, and they found themselves completely isolated from the outside world. The room was filled with eerie screams and moans that seemed to come from everywhere. The children began to cry, and the parents were at a complete loss. They tried to run outside, but the front doors were locked from the inside, as if someone or something wanted to keep them inside. They spent the night terrified, listening to those inhuman sounds and feeling fear and despair engulf them. In the morning, as the first rays of sunlight penetrated the room, they were finally able to get out of the house. The family was in shock, and they decided to leave the house, even though it had been a part of their lives for many years. The Morgan family found temporary shelter with relatives in another city and told them about the terrifying events that had happened to them. They contacted paranormal experts who investigated the case in their home. The frightening truth began to reveal itself to them. It turned out that the church across the street from their home carried a terrible past. Years ago, it had been the site of macabre rituals and sacrifices conducted by a dark cult. These obscurantists vowed to return and take over those living near the church to continue their dark deeds. The Morgan family finds themselves in the middle of this mystical battle between good and evil. To save their family and village, they had to fight the dark forces that wanted to take over their lives. They infiltrated inside the church, where they found an ancient scroll with a spell that could end the cult. However, the ritual was not easy. They faced unseen forces, their minds filled with visions of horror and fear. But the Morgan family was persistent and determined, and through their strength of faith and love for each other, they were able to destroy the dark forces and free the church from evil. From then on, life in the village began to recover. Elizabeth and Thomas became symbols of hope and strength to their neighbors, and Emma and Jake continued their studies and classes despite everything they had been through. The church was cleaned up and once again became a place of spiritual and national affection. The Morgan family remained in this village, forever connected to it and its history. Their story has become a legend passed down from generation to generation, reminding everyone how the power of family bonding and faith can overcome even the worst dark forces.
The old church, nestled deep in the heart of the woods, had long been abandoned by the townsfolk. Its crumbling steeple and weathered stone walls held memories of a time when it had been a place of solace and prayer. Now, it stood as a forgotten relic, shrouded in darkness, and haunted by whispers of a sinister past. A young priest named Father David was assigned to the forgotten church by the diocese. He arrived in town with a heavy heart, eager to restore the church to its former glory. His faith was unwavering, but he couldn't ignore the unsettling feeling that washed over him as he approached the decaying building. From the moment Father David set foot inside the church, he felt an unseen presence, a lingering malevolence that seemed to seep from the very walls. The air was heavy with an unnatural chill, and the once vibrant stained glass windows now cast eerie, distorted shadows. Despite his unease, Father David began the arduous task of cleaning and restoring the church, determined to breathe life back into its desolate halls. As Father David worked late into the night, he began to hear faint whispers that seemed to echo through the church. They were unintelligible at first, like the murmurs of distant voices carried on the wind. But as the days passed, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Father David couldn't shake the feeling that they were trying to convey a message, one that filled him with a growing sense of dread. One evening, as Father David knelt in prayer at the altar, he was overcome by a disturbing vision. He saw a group of hooded figures conducting a dark ritual within the church, their chants invoking malevolent forces that threatened to consume everything. The vision was so vivid that Father David could almost feel the oppressive weight of the hooded figures' presence. He knew that he had to uncover the truth behind the church's sinister history, even if it meant facing unspeakable horrors. Father David's determination led him to a hidden chamber beneath the church, a place that had been sealed for centuries. In the chamber, he found ancient manuscripts, scrolls filled with cryptic incantations, and symbols etched into the stone floor. As he studied the texts, Father David realized that the church had once been a place of forbidden rituals and dark magic. The whispers he had heard were the echoes of those who had practiced these sinister arts. With growing trepidation, Father David realized that the malevolent force he had sensed within the church was not a remnant of the past, but a living entity, a presence that hungered for power and sought to corrupt all it touched. He knew that he could not face this malevolent force alone and sought guidance from the church's higher authorities. But as he reached out for help, he couldn't shake the feeling that the malevolent force was watching, waiting, and growing stronger. Father David's plea for help reached the church's council, but their response was marked by reluctance and skepticism. They were hesitant to believe in the existence of a malevolent force within the church, dismissing it as mere superstition. Undeterred, Father David continued his research, determined to gather evidence that would convince the council of the dire threat the church faced. As Father David delved deeper into the church's dark history, he began to experience haunting dreams that left him sleep-deprived and on edge. In these dreams, he saw glimpses of the malevolent force's past victims, their tormented souls trapped within the church's walls. Each night, the dreams became more vivid and terrifying, and Father David couldn't help but wonder if the malevolent force was trying to communicate with him or drive him to madness. During one of his sleepless nights, Father David discovered a hidden compartment within the church's altar. Inside, he found an ancient chalice, its design bearing a striking resemblance to the symbols he had seen in the hidden chamber. As he examined the chalice, he realized that it was a cursed sacrament, used in the malevolent rituals of the past to channel dark energies. Its presence within the church only confirmed the depth of the malevolent force's influence. The discovery of the cursed sacrament seemed to intensify the malevolent force's presence within the church. Strange occurrences became a daily ordeal for Father David, as he witnessed unholy manifestations that defied explanation. Candles would extinguish themselves, crucifixes would turn upside down, and ominous shadows would slither across the walls. The whispers that once echoed in the background grew into menacing, guttural voices that taunted Father David. Unable to ignore the escalating disturbances any longer, Father David approached the church council once more, this time armed with undeniable proof of the malevolent force's existence. He presented them with the cursed sacrament, the hidden chamber, and the accounts of the haunting manifestations. Reluctantly, the council members began to acknowledge the severity of the situation. They agreed to consult with an exorcist, someone with the expertise to confront and expel the malevolent force. The exorcist, a grizzled man named Father Michael, arrived at the church with an air of grim determination. He had faced malevolent forces before and had earned a reputation for his unwavering resolve. Upon inspecting the church, Father Michael confirmed Father David's suspicions. The malevolent force was indeed real, and it was growing stronger with each passing day. Father Michael initiated the exorcism ritual, his voice resounding with ancient incantations that sought to banish the malevolent force. But as the ritual progressed, it became clear that the malevolent entity was no ordinary demon. It possessed an intelligence and power that defied comprehension. The church itself seemed to rebel against the exorcism, its walls quivering and shaking. Unearthly voices filled the air, mocking and challenging Father Michael's resolve. Desperate to turn the tide of the battle, Father David searched through the church's archives and discovered a relic, an object of great spiritual significance that had been hidden away for centuries. It was said to possess the power to purify and banish malevolent forces. With the relic in hand, Father David joined Father Michael in the struggle against the malevolent entity. Together, they chanted prayers and invoked the relic's power, their voices blending in a crescendo of faith. The malevolent entity, realizing the threat posed by the relic, lashed out with unrestrained fury. The church shook violently, and the very ground seemed to tremble beneath their feet. In a cacophony of screams and torment, the entity's malevolent energy surged, pushing back against the exorcism ritual. Father David and Father Michael struggled to maintain their resolve as the battle reached its climax. As the malevolent entity's power peaked, Father David and Father Michael channeled the relic's energy, their faith unwavering. A blinding light radiated from the relic, pushing back the malevolent force. The entity let out a blood-curdling scream, its form twisting and contorting. It fought desperately to maintain its hold on the church, but the relic's power was too much to bear. With one final burst of brilliance, the malevolent entity was banished from the church, vanquished by the combined faith and determination of Father David and Father Michael. As the blinding light subsided, the church returned to a state of eerie silence. The haunting manifestations ceased, and an overwhelming sense of peace washed over the sacred space. Father David and Father Michael, exhausted but triumphant, knew that their battle against the malevolent entity had been won. The church was free from its dark influence, and the town's long-forgotten sanctuary could once again be a place of solace and prayer. With the malevolent entity banished, the church council convened to discuss the fate of the old church. They recognized the need for extensive renovations to erase the scars left by the malevolent force's presence. However, some council members advocated for the church's closure, believing that its history was forever tainted. Father David vehemently opposed this idea, arguing that the church's redemption could serve as a testament to the power of faith and the triumph of good over evil. Father David's determination swayed the council, and they decided to restore the church. It would be a long and arduous process, but the townsfolk rallied behind the effort, volunteering their time and resources. As the renovations progressed, Father David discovered hidden relics and artifacts within the church, holy objects that had been concealed by previous generations in an effort to protect them from the malevolent entity. These artifacts, once feared as cursed, were now revered as symbols of the church's resilience. During the church's restoration, a hidden chamber beneath the altar was uncovered. Inside, a collection of journals and records shed light on the malevolent entity's origins and its connection to a former priest named Father Matthias. Father David carefully examined the journals, piecing together a chilling history. Father Matthias had been consumed by his lust for power and knowledge, leading him to perform forbidden rituals that had bound the malevolent entity to the church. The journal spoke of the entity's relentless hunger for souls and its insidious influence over those who ventured into the church. Father David knew that they had not yet unraveled the full extent of the entity's dark history. As the church's restoration continued, eerie occurrences began to plague the workers. Tools vanished, unexplained footsteps echoed in the empty aisles, and whispers filled the air once more. The council members who had initially doubted the malevolent force's existence were now forced to confront the undeniable reality. They reached out to Father David, who realized that the malevolent entity's influence was not easily eradicated. Determined to protect the church and the townsfolk, Father David embarked on a new quest to find a way to break the curse once and for all. The malevolent entity's resurgence tested the faith of the townsfolk and strained the council's patience. The once vibrant congregation dwindled as fear of the church's haunting reputation spread throughout the town. Father David's sermons grew somber as he tried to reassure the remaining faithful. He urged them to stand firm and not let the malevolent entity's malevolence extinguish their faith. But even Father David's conviction began to waver as the malevolent force continued to assert its presence. Father David became increasingly tormented by the sinister whispers that filled the church. They seemed to seep into his thoughts, planting seeds of doubt and despair. Late at night, as he prayed alone in the church, he heard the malevolent entity's voice echoing in his mind. It taunted him, tempting him with promises of power and knowledge that had seduced Father Matthias. Struggling to resist the entity's influence, Father David knew he had to seek guidance to preserve his faith and protect the church. Desperate for guidance, Father David sought the counsel of the town's eldest residents. The elders, with their deep knowledge of local folklore and history, shared tales of a revered guardian, a protector said to have defeated the malevolent entity centuries ago. They spoke of a hidden relic, the guardian's sigil, said to have the power to banish the malevolent entity forever. Father David realized that this might be their only hope to free the church from the entity's curse. With newfound purpose, Father David embarked on a quest to find the guardian's sigil. He followed the clues provided by the town's elders, leading him deeper into the heart of the woods surrounding the church. Each step of his journey was fraught with danger as he encountered ancient traps, hidden passages, and malevolent spirits guarding the sigil's location. It became clear that the guardian had gone to great lengths to protect the sigil from falling into the wrong hands. After weeks of tireless searching, Father David finally discovered the guardian's sigil, a radiant amulet imbued with divine energy. But retrieving it proved to be no simple task. The sigil was guarded by a spectral entity, the guardian's final test to determine if Father David was worthy. It challenged him with riddles and moral dilemmas, probing the depths of his faith and integrity. Only after passing the test and proving his unwavering resolve was Father David granted the guardian's sigil. Returning to the church with the guardian's sigil, Father David felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. The townsfolk rallied behind him, ready to support his efforts to banish the malevolent entity once and for all. With the sigil in hand, Father David and Father Michael initiated a powerful exorcism, their voices ringing out in unison. The malevolent entity, sensing their resolve, launched a ferocious counterattack. The battle of wills raged on, the outcome uncertain, as the church trembled under the weight of their struggle. As the exorcism reached its climax, Father David revealed a hidden truth he had discovered in the ancient texts, the malevolent entity's true name. He spoke the name aloud, a name that held power over the entity. The entity let out a deafening, agonized scream, its form writhing and contorting. The sigil's divine energy intensified, pushing back the malevolent force with a blinding burst of light. The malevolent entity was no match for the combined might of faith, determination, and the sigil's power. As the malevolent entity was banished, the church's restoration was finally complete. The haunting whispers ceased, and an overwhelming sense of peace settled over the sacred space. The townsfolk returned to the church, their faith rekindled, and the congregation grew stronger than ever before. The church, once a symbol of darkness, had been redeemed through unwavering faith and the guardian's sigil. Father David knew that the church's history could never be erased, but it had been transformed into a place of hope and salvation, a testament to the indomitable power of belief. In the quiet town of Blackwood, the centuries-old street Agnes Church stood as a symbol of tranquility. However, when a new priest, Father Gabriel, arrived, strange occurrences plagued the church. Unexplained whispers echoed through the halls, and unsettling shadows lurked in the corners, signaling the beginning of a chilling haunting. Father Gabriel delved into the church's history and discovered a dark secret. The church was built on grounds once used for occult rituals. A malevolent force, awakened by the church's presence, sought revenge, trapping the souls of the damned within the church's walls. The church's parishioners, once devout, became wary of attending services. Whispers of the supernatural spread like wildfire, and fear gripped the town. Father Gabriel, determined to restore faith, performed cleansing rituals, but the entity grew stronger, feeding on the fear and despair of the people. During a choir rehearsal, an unseen force possessed the singers, forcing them to sing ominous hymns in an otherworldly language. Father Gabriel witnessed this terrifying event, realizing that the entity sought to communicate a dark message, its intentions more sinister than he could comprehend. Father Gabriel uncovered an ancient curse linked to St. Agnes Church. Centuries ago, a vengeful witch cursed the church and its clergy, cursing them to eternal suffering. To break the curse, Father Gabriel embarked on a perilous journey, seeking the knowledge required to banish the malevolent entity. In a hidden chamber beneath the church, Father Gabriel discovered the diary of the vengeful witch, revealing her tragic story. She had been betrayed and executed by the church's clergy, cursing them with her dying breath. Father Gabriel realized that her restless spirit sought revenge against the descendants of those who wronged her. Father Gabriel, armed with the knowledge from the witch's diary, performed a risky ritual to communicate with her spirit. Through the ritual, he learned of a powerful amulet hidden in a forgotten catacomb beneath the church that could weaken the entity's influence and potentially break the curse. Navigating the treacherous catacombs, Father Gabriel encountered tormented souls bound by the entity's dark magic. He battled malevolent spirits and solved ancient riddles, ultimately finding the amulet. However, retrieving it triggered a chain reaction, awakening the entity's wrath. Father Gabriel faced the entity in a fierce battle within the catacombs. Shadows danced around them as the entity unleashed its full power. With the amulet in hand, Father Gabriel chanted ancient incantations, weakening the entity and forcing it to retreat temporarily. With the amulet in his possession, Father Gabriel strengthened the church's protective wards. The amulet, infused with the spirits of the tormented souls, created a barrier against the entity's influence. The church became a sanctuary once more, and hope flickered within the hearts of the townsfolk. For a while, peace settled over St. Agnes Church. Father Gabriel and the parishioners cautiously resumed their normal routines. However, the entity's malevolence lingered in the shadows, biding its time and plotting its return. Subtle signs of the entity's presence reemerged. Objects moved on their own, and chilling laughter echoed through the church at night. Father Gabriel sensed the entity's growing anger and desperation, realizing that it would stop at nothing to break the protective wards. A parishioner named Sarah fell victim to the entity's possession. Her once kind eyes turned malevolent, and her voice took on a sinister tone. Father Gabriel, recognizing the signs, attempted an exorcism, but the entity resisted, its grip on Sarah growing stronger with each passing day. To save Sarah, Father Gabriel consulted ancient texts, discovering a ritual that could sever the entity's connection to her soul. The ritual required precise timing and unwavering faith. As he performed the ceremony, the church shook, and the entity's screams filled the air. Several parishioners mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only cryptic messages. Father Gabriel realized that the entity had manipulated them, using their fear and despair to weaken the protective wards. Determined to save his flock, Father Gabriel strengthened the wards, pouring his own strength into the protective spells. During a midnight vigil, the church was consumed by an otherworldly darkness. Father Gabriel and the parishioners found themselves trapped inside, their voices drowned out by eerie whispers. The entity revealed its true form, a grotesque, shadowy figure with glowing eyes. The parishioners huddled together, reciting prayers to fend off the malevolent presence. Realizing that the entity fed on fear, Father Gabriel made a bold decision. He stepped forward, offering himself as a sacrifice to save the parishioners. His bravery and selflessness created a surge of protective energy, forcing the entity back and sealing the church's doors, preventing its escape. Within the church's confines, Father Gabriel encountered the spirits of the witches' victims, souls bound by the entity's curse. They pledged their allegiance, aiding Father Gabriel in the battle against the entity. Together, they devised a plan to weaken the entity and banish it from the church once and for all. The ghostly allies and Father Gabriel performed an ancient ritual, creating an unearthly symphony of prayer and light. The church resonated with their combined energy, dispelling the entity's darkness. The entity writhed in agony, its form contorting as it attempted to resist the cleansing power. In a climactic battle, Father Gabriel and the ghostly allies faced the entity. The church trembled with the intensity of their struggle. With the amulet and the spirit's energy, Father Gabriel weakened the entity's defenses, allowing the ghostly allies to bind the entity in chains of light. With a final incantation, Father Gabriel and the ghostly allies banished the entity from St. Agnes Church. The entity screamed in fury and despair, vanishing into the depths of the underworld. The church was finally free from its malevolent presence. In the aftermath of the battle, Father Gabriel and the parishioners worked together to cleanse the church of any residual darkness. The church's aura of tranquility returned, and the haunting whispers faded away. The town of Blackwood celebrated the victory, grateful for Father Gabriel's courage and the ghostly allies' aid. With the entity's curse lifted, the parishioners regained their faith in St. Agnes Church. Father Gabriel's unwavering dedication inspired them, and the church became a symbol of hope and resilience. The once haunted halls echoed with hymns of gratitude, and the town's spirit was revitalized. Father Gabriel's bravery and the parishioners' resilience became a cherished tale, passed down through generations. St. Agnes Church stood as a testament to their strength, reminding the world that even in the face of the darkest forces, faith and unity could prevail. Although the entity was banished, Father Gabriel knew that vigilance was necessary. He continued his studies, delving into ancient texts to ensure the church remained protected. The ghostly allies, now at peace, stood watch over the church, their presence a comforting assurance to Father Gabriel and the parishioners. Years passed, and the haunting became a distant memory. St. Agnes Church thrived, its pews filled with devoted worshippers. Father Gabriel, now an elder in the church, smiled as he saw the faith and unity that had emerged from the darkness. The town of Blackwood embraced a new dawn, its spirit unbreakable. One day, a weary traveler arrived in Blackwood, seeking shelter in St. Agnes Church. Father Gabriel welcomed the stranger, unaware that the traveler carried an ancient artifact, an amulet similar to the one used in the banishment ritual. Little did they know that the entity's malevolence still lingered, seeking a chance to return. The weary traveler, named Amelia, revealed the artifact's secret. It was an amulet of shadows, capable of harnessing both light and darkness. Amelia had stumbled upon ancient texts describing a ritual that could amplify the amulet's power, potentially resurrecting the banished entity. Horrified by the revelation, Father Gabriel knew they had to prevent the ritual at any cost. Amelia, driven by a dark purpose, began the forbidden ritual in the church's hidden chamber. Father Gabriel, armed with his knowledge of ancient lore, confronted her. A battle of wills ensued as Father Gabriel tried to convince Amelia of the entity's malevolence. The fate of Blackwood hung in the balance. Within the hidden chamber, Father Gabriel and Amelia engaged in a battle that transcended the physical realm. Shadows writhed and light flickered as their powers clashed. The fate of the Amulet of Shadows determined the outcome of their struggle, each moment tipping the scales towards salvation or calamity. Amidst the battle, the ghostly allies who had aided Father Gabriel before intervened. Their ethereal presence bolstered his resolve, creating a shield of spiritual energy that protected him from Amelia's dark influence. Their combined efforts weakened Amelia's control over the ritual, giving Father Gabriel a chance to seize the amulet. Amelia, consumed by the darkness, realized the error of her ways. In a moment of clarity, she sacrificed herself to disrupt the ritual. Her selflessness shattered the amulet, preventing the entity's resurrection. Amelia's sacrifice served as a beacon of redemption, breaking the cycle of malevolence that had plagued Blackwood. Blackwood mourned the loss of Amelia, recognizing her bravery in the face of darkness. Father Gabriel conducted a solemn service in her honor, vowing to preserve her memory and continue protecting the town. The spirit of unity among the townsfolk grew stronger, a testament to the sacrifices made for their shared safety. In the aftermath of the ordeal, Father Gabriel and the remaining ghostly allies reinforced the church's protective wards. Using the residual energy from the shattered amulet, they crafted new spells, ensuring that the church would be safeguarded against any future threats. The town of Blackwood breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing they were shielded by the courage of their protectors. Despite the apparent peace, Father Gabriel remained vigilant. He continued his research, delving deeper into ancient texts to understand the entity's origins fully. The ghostly allies stood watchful, their ethereal forms patrolling the church grounds, ready to alert Father Gabriel at the slightest sign of supernatural disturbance. Even with the protective wards in place, the haunting memories lingered. Father Gabriel and the townsfolk, scared by their encounters with the supernatural, found solace in each other's presence. Their shared experiences created an unbreakable bond, transforming Blackwood into a town that stood united against the forces of darkness. As years passed, a new generation grew up in Blackwood, unaware of the town's dark history. Father Gabriel, now an elder statesman, took on the responsibility of training a new group of guardians. He imparted his knowledge, ensuring that the town's defenses would be passed down to those willing to protect their home. One stormy night, a group of mysterious visitors arrived in Blackwood. They claimed to be paranormal investigators, interested in the town's supernatural past. Skeptical yet intrigued, Father Gabriel allowed them access to the church's archives, unaware that their arrival would unearth ancient secrets and awaken dormant malevolence. The paranormal investigators, led by a renowned psychic named Ilara, began their research. As they delved into the church's history, supernatural phenomena intensified. Objects moved on their own, and chilling whispers filled the air. Ilara sensed a powerful presence, distinct from the entity they had faced before, lurking in the shadows. In an attempt to communicate with the entity, Ilara organized a séance within the church. The atmosphere grew tense as the séance began, and the room was engulfed in an otherworldly coldness. The entity's presence became palpable, and Ilara channeled its energy, seeking to understand its motives and desires. Through Ilara's connection with the entity, a tragic tale unfolded. The entity, once a human cursed by dark magic, sought redemption for its past sins. It revealed that a malevolent force, older and more sinister than itself, manipulated events to turn it into a vengeful spirit. Together, they faced a common enemy, the ancient darkness that had cursed them both. The entity made a pact with Ilara and Father Gabriel. It offered its assistance in exchange for their help in breaking the ancient curse that bound them. Reluctantly, Father Gabriel agreed, realizing that the entity's redemption might hold the key to Blackwood's lasting peace. The entity revealed the existence of a cursed relic, the Bloodstone Amulet, which had amplified its malevolence. To break the curse, they needed to locate the amulet and perform a ritual to purify its dark energies. The amulet, hidden for centuries, was rumored to be buried deep within Blackwood's haunted woods. Father Gabriel, Ilara, and a group of trusted individuals embarked on a perilous journey into the haunted woods. Guided by the entity's knowledge, they faced spectral guardians, ancient traps, and the vengeful spirits of the cursed woods. Their determination was unwavering as they ventured deeper, guided by the hope of breaking the curse. In the heart of the haunted woods, the group encountered the Guardian, a mythical entity tasked with protecting the Bloodstone amulet. To prove their worth, they underwent a series of trials, testing their courage, wisdom, and compassion. Overcoming the Guardian's challenges, they earned its trust and learned the amulet's location. Armed with the Bloodstone amulet, Father Gabriel, Ilara, and their companions performed the ritual of purification within the church. The amulet glowed with malevolent energy, resisting their efforts. With the entity's guidance, they chanted ancient incantations, channeling their collective willpower to cleanse the amulet and weaken the ancient darkness. As the ritual progressed, the ancient darkness retaliated. Shadowy tendrils snaked through the church, threatening to extinguish the sacred flames. Father Gabriel and Ilara stood firm, their unwavering resolve amplifying the ritual's power. The entity, now redeemed, lent its strength, pushing back against the darkness. A fierce battle unfolded between the entity and the ancient darkness. Light clashed with shadow, each force vying for dominance. Father Gabriel, Ilara, and their companions fought alongside the entity, defending the purified amulet. The church trembled under the strain of their struggle, but their determination prevailed. With a final surge of power, the entity and its allies triumphed over the ancient darkness. The purified amulet emitted a brilliant light, dispelling the shadows that had plagued Blackwood for centuries. The church, once a battleground, now stood bathed in the glow of redemption. The ancient darkness was vanquished, its malevolence eradicated by the combined efforts of Father Gabriel, Ilara, and the redeemed entity. Blackwood found its long-awaited peace, and the Church of St. Agnes became a beacon of hope. The tale of redemption and unity echoed through the town, reminding future generations that even the darkest souls could find salvation in the light of compassion and courage.